So hey everyone, welcome back to part 4 of my Spider-Man review series, and today the movie we'll be reviewing is The Amazing Spider-Man.
Hey, Emma. Yeah. Eggs? Organic, got it.
In its opening weekend, The Amazing Spider-Man earned $62 million, and overall it earned $757.9 million worldwide. There's no need to argue about it, everyone has their own opinion. No one is right, no one is wrong. Just feel free to chat about it in the comments and have fun. No arguing. So without waiting any longer, let's get straight into my review of The Amazing Spider-Man. So to start us off, as always, I'm gonna begin with all the things I didn't really like about the movie. So the first thing that I don't really like is Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. This is the main thing that I don't really like about the movie. It's all that really lets the movie down massively, in my opinion. This doesn't mean that I dislike Emma as an actor. She's amazing in some other films that I've seen her in, such as Zombieland, and you know, she's probably in a lot more, but I've seen both the Zombieland films and they're amazing. But I don't know, she doesn't really portray Gwen Stacy very well, in my opinion. Her performance feels very confused, sort of like 1 minute her personality will be one way and then it's another way, and it sort of gives me like the feeling that from scene to scene we're seeing two completely different characters. Like, obviously they have to deliver the same line of script that they're given, but it's like the way that she portrays this character and you know, obviously performs these lines. It's like her character attitude, or just the character as a whole is like, it changes constantly how she acts, and it just feels really confused. Like she didn't lock on to a specific character. She kept sort of changing and going, oh, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, and it's like she's trying to play 5 different characters in one movie that's about to be played by, you know, one character, not 5. So it all just feels a bit messy to me, her character in general. The car thief scene is another scene that I kind of find a bit meh. Like, it's not very good. It's the first time that we see Peter fully suited up as Spider-Man, and it just feels kind of rushed. It feels really messy. It feels sort of over the top for me. Like, it's a bit too much in terms of silliness. Like, the bit where the thief gets in the car, you're gonna genuinely sit there and tell me that that thief did not see Spider-Man, right, a rather tall person, right, in a red and blue suit, get into that car with him, or even hear the door opening? Like, it's pretty quiet outside. Like, you'd hear someone getting in the car, so don't tell me that he didn't hear him get in the car. That's stupid. Then all of a sudden, when Spider-Man manages to get the thief to hit the window and get out of the car, it pans back to where Spider-Man was sitting, and the man is gone. He's gone, right? And this isn't even the worst part, right? I can sort of deal with the fact that he's gone, but then the next time we see Spider-Man, he runs from the other side of the car park. Like, the man is agile, but he's not the Flash, okay? He's Spider-Man. He's not that fast. The piece of dialogue between the thief and Spider-Man, when they're talking about the knife, and he's like, it's my weakness, small knives. This is actually hilarious bit of dialogue. Love it, but it's not mixed very well, and it sounds very messy. To me, it sounds like there's about 3 different people talking, and there's only 2. It's only supposed to be the thief and Spider-Man. And overall, like, the distancing, but it's definitely voiced over. It's not done on the like on set. It's definitely voiced over, I can tell. The space in between each line of dialogue sounds like really uneven and unnatural. There's something about it seems like they overlap too much. Like, they're non-natural responses, and you can tell that it's voiced over. Very messy, ruins the whole scene. One scene that I find absolutely unbearably sappy is when Gwen is tending to Peter's wounds after his encounter with the lizard in the sewer. Now don't get me wrong, I love how this scene ends with Peter accepting his responsibility for his actions, and because he basically created the lizard. I love that little speech about how it's his fault, his responsibility, he has to stop him. Absolutely love it. The problem I have with this scene, however, is the amount of flirting that comes before it. Like, doesn't add to the story at all, doesn't really add to their relationship. It's just there, makes the scene drag. It's cheesy as hell. It's like so over the top. No, it's bad. Finally, we have the worst line of dialogue in this entire film, and that line of dialogue is, "Those are the best kind." I hate this line. Probably not for the reasons you think though, right? I don't really mind Peter breaking the promise, because it's clear to see that Gwen is not happy without Peter. She's not happy with the terms of this promise, but that's just not the way to go about it, Chief. In my eyes, this is just like saying screw your father and everything he stood for, with a complete lack of respect. If there was a genuine conversation between Gwen and Peter where she expresses her absolute admiration to him, then he may understand that she is not happy with the terms of the promise, and therefore he would then break the promise to make her life happier, make her life better. Because what really matters is her happiness. But instead, the film makes him look like he has a complete disregard for her father's promise. It makes him seem selfish, because it makes it look like he's breaking the promise for his own gain. Like, oh yeah, I love Gwen, so I'm gonna break the promise because, yeah, screw her father. But in reality, I think he's breaking it for both their benefit. Like, she's not happy, he's not happy. By breaking this promise, they can both be happy. But I don't think he should do it in this way. It should be more of a respectful way. He shouldn't just say, oh yeah, I break promises because those are the best kind. That's wrong. Okay, now on to the things that I actually like about this movie. After rewatching this movie, I was very pleasantly surprised. I used to hate this movie. It used to be one of my least favourite Spider-Man movies, but after rewatching it, you know, I was surprised. There are some things in this movie I freaking love, and I say some, there's a lot, man. I really like this film. So as soon as the movie opens up, we are greeted by possibly one of the best things about this film, and that is James Horner's score. James Horner's score for this movie was bloody phenomenal, and in my opinion, is almost as good as Danny Elfman's. And I say almost because it doesn't really have that iconic theme that like everyone knows as Spider-Man's theme, but like in terms of just a movie soundtrack in general, this is bloody amazing. The main sort of Spider-Man theme for this movie, I think you can all understand what I mean when I say that. It's amazing. It has this like heroic energy to it. It feels so epic, and you just, it swells and makes you feel like a hero. It's so energetic and heroic and epic, and man, it gives me goosebumps every time. I love it. It's an amazing theme. He also makes some of the fight scenes like super intense, and honestly, if you haven't watched the film in a long time, either watch the film or like go on, I don't know, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, and just search up this soundtrack and just give it all a listen. It's absolutely incredible. Now, a lot of people's problems with this movie lie within Peter Parker, and that used to be my biggest problem with it, was Peter Parker, until I rewatched. I love everything about how Peter Parker is portrayed in this movie. People can't say that he's too cool, because he's not cool at all. He has no friends, and he's always alone. He has no people skills, as shown when the girl asks him if he wouldn't mind taking some photos of her boyfriend's car for his birthday. In fact, he seems in complete shock, as if like this never happens. No one ever talks to him. He's like, what the hell's going on? Why is this girl talking to me? I'm so awkward right now. Peter's attitude is also another thing I love about this portrayal of Peter. It can be seen sort of right at the beginning of the film, where the teacher tells him to keep his board up in the air with the wheels to the ceiling, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. Goes around the corner immediately starts to skate again. So I absolutely hate this because when this movie came out, I based everything I knew about Spider-Man on the Raimi films. I didn't even know the Ultimate Comics were a thing. Now that I've read the Ultimate Comics, I appreciate Peter's character so much more in these films, because it is so similar to Peter in those comics that it's unreal. Like, in the Ultimate Comics, he doesn't take any shit. He's super short-tempered and he's quite rebellious too. So, you know, those parallels are, you know, they're quite similar. The adaptations are quite similar. And I thought they were like trying to make up this new cool Peter Parker who like skates and he's rebellious and all that, but no, it's just the ultimate adaptation, and I didn't know that until I read them. One thing I have to say that I do like about this Peter more than I like than over Raimi's Peter is that we are shown more of his intelligence rather than just a couple throwaway lines. For example, when he goes to the basement with Uncle Ben, he easily can sort of figure out what's wrong with the freezer. I think it's freezer. He can easily figure out what's wrong with it. He's like, nah, it can't be the condenser tray. It's too much liquid, bro. Like, come on now, Dylan. He's got his own mechanical door lock that shows that he obviously has some sort of electronic and engineering expertise. And then he even goes and helps an award-winning scientist finish the whole cross-species equation thing, which is when he helps Connors. I know it's wrong, right? Like, there's obviously an imbalance in it, but he makes some sense of it. The guy's like 15, 16 years old and he makes sense of that. Man is a genius. Peter in this movie is also a lot more relatable, for me anyway, than Tobey's Peter Parker. This is mainly because Tobey's Peter Parker is portrayed as a complete dork, and that is not me. But what is me is a shy punk rock loving guy who can't really talk to girls that well. However, when you get to know me, I'm pretty, you know, I'm pretty hyper and I'm nuts, and I'll talk the head off a penny. I never shut up. So yeah, that's just the exact sort of vibes that I get from Andrew's Peter Parker. When you get to know him, he's like a completely different person, but on the outside he's just a shy guy who loves a bit of punk rock, because you can see the posters in his bedroom. He clearly likes some sort of rock, and he skates. How can you skate and not like punk rock? The cinematography in this movie is another thing that really stands out to me. It's amazing in like many different scenes. There are a lot of great shots in this movie, but one scene that really calls out to me is the train scene just after Peter gets bitten by the spider. I love how this scene was shot because it manages to make me feel exactly how I imagine Peter feeling in this moment. It makes me feel a little disorientated, and the scene is like super claustrophobic. I imagine Peter feeling this way because his body is like rapidly changing, so he's probably got like a splitting headache, he's sweating a bunch, you know, he's just trying to sleep, and then this guy comes and puts a bloody beer on his head. He's probably like, bro, leave me alone, I feel terrible, you know, just give me a sec, like I feel ill as hell. It makes me feel like I'm really there experiencing the bite for myself, which is a weird thing to say, but when it makes me feel that way, that's great. Like, it makes me feel what I'd imagine Peter feeling. Like, and that's exactly what a movie wants to make you do. It wants to make you sort of empathise with the characters and feel what they're feeling. And I feel exactly what Peter's feeling in this scene. It's great. The basketball scene is another scene that gets a lot of hate in this movie, but I think it's the perfect representation of Peter's inner confidence that we don't see much of before he gets his powers. Peter now understands that with his newfound abilities, he can help people to an extent, and you know, he decides that when Flash is being a dick to the girl painting, that he can probably find a way to get him to back off. However, whilst he's doing the right thing in standing up for himself and standing up for the girl, he is also taking it that step too far by humiliating Flash and using his powers for his own gain to try and make him look good. You know, he's making fun of the bully, so he looks like, you know, he looks good. And because he's using his powers for his own good, he's, you know, this shows that he hasn't learnt his responsibility yet. He hasn't learned to be responsible, and that's all part of Peter's arc throughout this movie. This movie is also really great at showing consequences for Peter's actions, because this one wrong action that came from humiliating Flash, that one wrong action leads to many more wrong actions that then lead to Uncle Ben's death. This shows that responsibility can go a long way, because something as small as a little incident in school has now led to the death of a person. By breaking the backboard at school, Uncle Ben had to come into Peter's school, meaning he had to get time off work, and then he had to work later hours because he took that time off. He'd have to work on. This meant that he couldn't pick up Aunt May from her job, so Peter would have to do so. However, Peter goes to Oscorp to meet with Dr. Connors, which leads in Aunt May having to walk home from work in the night, and then when Peter gets home, he has an argument with Uncle Ben about it, which ends in Peter running off. He then lets the thief get away, and then the thief ends up shooting Uncle Ben. So, as you can see, Peter's actions have huge consequences in this movie. The skating montage is another part of this movie that I absolutely love. I think I've heard a couple of people hating on it, but let me just explain why I love it. Whenever I get really happy or overly excited, all I want to do is like play guitar or jam out to drums. I just get like this burst of energy where I just want to, you know, as I said, play guitar, go on drums. All these things are my hobbies. When Peter gets really happy about organising some form of date with Gwen, he also gets really happy, so then he goes skating. Now, skating in this movie is Peter's main hobby, so this adds to his relatability for me, because if Peter likes to go skating when he's happy as a hobby, and I like to drum and play guitar when I'm happy as a hobby, then those are two things that match, so it adds a ton to his relatability for me. Uncle Ben's death hits a lot harder for me in this movie, even though I love how it was done in the Raimi trilogy. It's much more tragic in this movie because Peter never gets to say anything to Uncle Ben before he passes away. He's already gone before Peter gets there. To drive this even further, Peter never even gets the closure of finding Uncle Ben's killer in this movie. He becomes a responsible Spider-Man just because it's the right thing to do. I also love the little representation of the blood on Peter's hands when he's holding his hands on Uncle Ben's chest, because obviously it's Peter's fault that Uncle Ben is dead, so the blood is on Peter's hands. The dinner table talk is one of the most standout points in this movie for me, because during this talk, Peter is being so selfish, trying to make himself look good, and it's not until later when he actually listens to Captain Stacy that he is in the wrong. Up until this point, Peter thinks he's been doing the right thing until it's pointed out by Captain Stacy that Spider-Man is only going after certain criminals and he's not protecting innocent people. This is where Peter realises, and you can see it in his face, he's like, well shit. This is where Peter realises that he's not doing the right thing. He can't go on like this. He's not being responsible. He then goes on to complete his first heroic act on the bridge, which is quite honestly my favourite part of the film. When he saves the little boy, Jack, on the bridge and returns him to his father, you can see in the father's eyes and in Jack's eyes that they are so happy to be in each other's company and they're so happy to have each other and that they're both safe. And you can see in Spider-Man's body language that he's just completely overwhelmed with sadness and emotion, because this is something that he can never have. People also say that Spider-Man is too much of a dick in this movie and that he isn't saving anyone, but that's because they identify him as Spider-Man as soon as he dons the suit. My reply to anyone who thinks this is that he doesn't call himself Spider-Man until he completes that first heroic act on the bridge, which I love. Like, by doing this one heroic act, he's redeemed himself. He's cleaned himself of all the revenge that he had built up inside of him, and he's realised that he can in fact do good, and he is Spider-Man now. I also love how Spider-Man in this universe goes about conflict. He doesn't go straight to throwing punches. He tries to break them down first, sort of like get some sense out of them. So you can see this in the school fight with the lizard. He doesn't like hurt the lizard until he realizes that Dr. Connors is too far gone. He's constantly trying to say like, come on man, this isn't you, you're a good guy, you're not a psycho, you're a good man, don't do this. But he realizes that Dr. Connors is too far gone, and then he has to stop the lizard by any means necessary. The final thing that I love about this movie is the crane scene. Now, many people say that this is pointless, but I think it's perfect. This scene shows that not only will Peter's bad actions equal in consequences, but Peter's good actions will equal in reward, because the person who operates the cranes is the father of the boy he saves on the bridge. People who criticise this scene normally just say he didn't deserve this kind of help, it was just thrown in to have like the New York relationship with Spider-Man. But no, he completely deserved this scene. If some guy saved my son from death, I'd be more than willing to put in a couple of minutes of overtime. The Amazing Spider-Man is honestly a really good film. I had a thoroughly good time rewatching it, and I could easily stick it right back on and watch it right now. It's a much darker and grittier interpretation of the wall crawler than what we got in Sam Raimi's trilogy, and I'm all for it. It feels a lot more realistic and grounded, consequences are high, and Peter does lose people along the way. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. This is exactly how being a hero would feel. You can't save everyone, people will get hurt, and honestly I'm really glad that Mark Webb had the balls to tell a darker story, because it works pretty well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like, comment your opinions down below, and if you like all the other content, why not hit subscribe? If you're already subscribed, as always, we appreciate the continued support. We are so close to 2K now, it's unbelievable. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.